Hello and welcome to another edition of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. And I think I'll start us off with our sport business moment.
Sounds good.
And a lot of speculation on, is Facebook going to get serious and start spending some real money to broadcast some sports? And so this past week they spent $30 million for a range of midweek, mid-afternoon MLB games. And some people are saying that they bought the crumbs. But, midweek, I guess to me it seems like they're experimenting.
Right.
And so they're going to do this midweek MLB games or day games that makes sense for social media because you might have your Facebook page open and doing some other stuff during the day. So I can see that. Then they bought Conference USA games and only spent $1 million on it, but they got a bunch of Conference USA games. And that one I'm a little, again, that's why I think it's experimental.
Right.
I don't think it's really, that's not what I would have bought, but I would buy that as a low entry point to see how it works and to see how I can figure it out and decide if I want to bid for a bigger package next time. So that's one of my sport business moments.
I think the baseball one makes a lot of sense because, let's say I'm at work and and you got two monitors. Or I got one monitor in the corner. I've got the Yankee game on, and Aaron Judge comes up, and then I click on to watch Aaron Judge bat. Or Stanton bat, watch. But then I can kind of go back because baseball, I don't feel like it's tough to watch a whole baseball game, just especially midweek. But if it's background on my computer, then it's.
There's all those Thursday games that are the getaway games.
Right.
That are always really early, like if it's either a Wednesday or a Thursday, it's like a 12:30 game or 1 o'clock game. I think that's what they bought.
Right, and that's obviously going to be great for regular fans that are stuck at work all day. But I even think casual now. I think you may get more casual viewing potentially. Anyway.
Okay. So our other business moment is the new football league. What do you think about it?
I think you're going to have the same problem that all the other football leagues have. Like I know I've seen some of the names going in, but it always comes down to the quality of the football.
All right. Well, some things I thought were interesting were, what they're trying to do is probably position the NFL to bring them on as a developmental league. That seems to be the play right now with all these new leagues. The NFL is going to want a developmental league, try out new rules, attempt things. Like this doesn't have kickoffs, it doesn't have punts. And instead of an onside kick, you get the ball they give you like a 4th and 10 scenario. And if you convert it, then you get the ball. They're also talking about the games being like between 2 and 2.5 hours because they're going to have 60% less commercials.
Well, that part's nice right there.
That's interesting. See, it's all interesting. You can't kick the extra point. It has to be a 2-point conversion, but that's the old World Football League from the 70s rule.
Right.
But interesting that what was interesting, and I can't talk too much about it, but the exact same time this league was announced, there was another group in my office pitching me on this idea. Their idea, which is very similar to this idea. It had some interesting, intriguing people involved in it as well.
Right.
But I don't know. It's probably going to be streamed a lot. CBS is going to buy. I think CBS bought opening day and the playoffs, and I think the rest of it is primarily going to be streamed. And we'll see. I mean, again, you and I've talked about it a million times about oversaturation.
Right.
But if you get Colin Kaepernick and Tebow and Johnny Manziel and a bunch of people like that involved, who knows? Maybe some people will turn it on just to see what happens.
I mean, out of curiosity, sure. I just feel like with college football,
the big deal they made about Johnny Manziel going to San Diego State's pro day and throwing to the couple guys that were there.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants, to see the story there. So I don't know.
I mean, I think unless you get, unless people are foregoing college to join this NFL, I mean, I know it's not officially, but unless they were going to go and, play football full time instead of going to college, which I don't think would be a good idea, because I think college football works pretty well for what it's designed for. Like, I still think, once you get over the novelty of like, oh, it's Johnny Manziel and Tim Tebow, like, is it just going to be over the hill guys, like T.O. trying to make a comeback? Like, where's your talent at, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very similar to the same thing. You're going to see that. There's going to be some people that they're going to want to see it, and they're going to want to check things out, and we'll see where it goes.
Because football is still not really a globally played sport.
No.
So you have, I mean, with the NBA, you do have, clearly the Americans are still making, the best players are still coming from America. But with the NFL, like you get 99% of the NFL are American born, so I mean, there's not this other
Yeah.
pool of talented people that just aren't getting seen. The talented people, and you have, 50 something man rosters plus practice squads. Like, I just don't see where you're going to get the people to play in this league outside of
No.
retreads and,
No.
your a few couple.
The argument that fails me is that they keep saying that Americans have this unsatisfied appetite, unsatiable appetite for more football, and I don't think we do.
No, like I realize Thursday Night Football just sold for a crap load of money yet again. But
Yeah.
as much as I love football, like it has to be the Steelers, or I'm not watching Thursday night. I'm just not.
No, there's not been many compelling Thursday night matchups.
And I think
There's
when
many
you
compelling Monday night matchups.
no, and I mean I realize ratings are down across the board, for whatever variety of reasons they say, but for the most part, there's just so much to do that like what made football special initially was the fact that it left you wanting more. Like I know personally, like I
Yeah.
love a lot of BBC shows, and I noticed the sitcoms I love in America I don't love as much as the BBC sitcoms, and I think part of it is most of the BBC sitcoms I get 25 episodes, and that's all I get for the entire series. So I'm left wanting more. Whereas, I mean, over here we just run it into the ground till people are sick of it, whether it's The Office or Parks and Rec or you go down the list. It's very rare that a show leaves at its top when it's still, when people still want it. And I think right now I feel like I get enough football as someone who loves football.
Yeah, I don't argue with that. I think we get plenty. Well, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Or we're going to talk a little bit of NBA and talk about injuries, which could alter the entire playoff scenario.
Especially because the two of the players on the best teams in basketball, obviously Steph and Klay Thompson in Golden State, and then Kyrie with Boston, who already lost Gordon Hayward. That.
Yeah, those are four stellar players that would impact. And Steph's going to sit out the rest of the regular season. Klay Thompson can't shoot right-handed yet. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because it opens the door then for a potential Toronto-Houston series.
It really, really does.
Which, at this point, I would have to say would not surprise me.
Although, you did just watch LeBron put on a show the other night against Toronto.
I did.
Not defensively, obviously, as the Cavs proved they're not playing defense at all this year. But 37 points, 17 assists. Kevin Love came back and looked good. Obviously, with the caveat being, each time, the new Cavs at the beginning of the year looked great. The new Cavs after the trade looked great. The new Cavs with the reinvigorated Kevin Love looked great. But we'll see if, there's any sort of sustained, new Cavs team. But clearly they're not going to play any defense. So.
No, not at all. So we'll see. I mean, I did like Kevin Love. I thought he expanded the floor for him. I thought that was a good thing. So we'll see.
And we do know playoff LeBron can flip the switch and play defense if he wants to play defense.
True.
Now, anybody else on that team, I have no idea. But
if you're one of the other teams now, though, and you're seeing these injuries, are you going to start resting your guys a little bit more? Preventive maintenance?
I mean, I guess if you're Houston, Chris Paul's had a little bit of an injury history. I think you could say at this point. He's at his age right now. You wouldn't mind getting him some more minutes, some rest. And from what everybody says, and I mean, like I said, I don't think he deserved to be the MVP last year, but I think Harden is clearly the MVP this year outside of LeBron. And I think he's got that wrapped up. Like, I don't think anybody's catching him, so I think getting Harden some rest wouldn't hurt either. I mean, if it's about NBA championships and not regular season success, then yeah, they've already won a franchise record 59 games. I don't really know what else they have to play for because they're not getting to 73. So,
no.
I think they've almost got the one seed locked up. So, yeah, it would make a lot of sense to rest.
And then the reverse, watching the bottom three, like Phoenix.
The Grizzlies have been spectacular and they're losing.
Yes. Phoenix and the Grizzlies have probably had the worst losses of any teams in the NBA. I mean, they've lost by like 30, 40 points. They've lost just by a ton.
And when you look around the league and think about, draft picks and talent, who do you think is the worst run organization over the last decade? Is it Phoenix? Is it Orlando? I mean,
You'd have to put them in the mix.
because you look at the way like some of
Memphis
those,
has some success.
yeah. Because you look at the way Sabonis and Oladipo are playing in Indiana right now, and the potential that Aaron Gordon clearly has, and some of the other guys the Magic have had, and you just wonder like, what are they doing over there? Because it just seems like,
Well, they're giving up too quick. They changed the coaches too quick.
yeah, they have no patience. That's for sure.
All these franchises, you got to look at. When you're trying to turn the team around, and you have the coach and the GM, and you're deciding which one you're going to fire, you can only be 50% right in some cases.
Yeah.
Pick the wrong one.
Right. I guess the Magic is obviously a team I got to watch quite a bit in person. It just, between some of in the trade, you trade for Ibaka, giving up two young players and then you go sign other bigs and you drafted Aaron Gordon. It just seems like such a debacle. And right now, and then you draft Jonathan Isaacs, who's basically, kind of another four who can't really shoot.
It's hard to say where this is going to go. I mean, and they haven't had a high enough draft pick to really make a difference.
No, and I have not seen.
They haven't had 1, 2, or 3, have they? I know Phoenix hasn't had 1, 2.
Victor Oladipo was the second pick in the draft, I think. I thought Oladipo was pretty high. But that brings me to my point about after watching the tournament, which is the most college basketball I got to watch all year, and we'll transition into the Final Four here in a second, Elite Eight. I don't really, outside of Doncic, who I don't know anything about because he plays in another country, I don't know who you're all excited to tank for this year. Because
they say if Phoenix gets the number 1 pick, they'll probably take the guy out of Arizona, but he looked bleak in that game. Their loss.
Right, and he's never looked like he can play any defense. And as exciting as it is that he's, near 40% shooting three-pointers, like, I realize you need your bigs to space the floor, but you also need your bigs to protect the rim and be a big. At some point, if the guy's just going to hang around on the outside shooting threes, then who cares if he's 7 foot or 6 feet? If you can't block shots and rebound, then
he's probably in the mix. Bagley's probably in the mix for the top pick, right? Who else?
Well, Doncic, the European superstar.
Yeah.
But as people like to throw out, guards from Europe have typically not translated as well as bigs from Europe. And, there are people who, granted, he has had a very successful NBA career, but Ricky Rubio, when you look at what he was doing at age 15, like, he never really developed into the player you thought he was going to be.
No, he did not become the superstar everybody thought he was going to be. Absolutely. That's absolutely right.
So I know the knock on Doncic is, is he just another European guard? So, I don't know. But, there's clearly not like a LeBron kind of, Kyrie, number 1 overall.
If I had 5, 6, 7, 8, I'd probably look at Trae Young. I'd probably look at Sexton. I'd look at players like that are going to be really good, but they're not going to be the guy you build around. They're not going to be the guy that changed the franchise.
Right.
Whereas, I don't know, maybe one of these guys is. Hard to say.
Yeah, you never know, but when I'm watching, like, when the guys I watch play, I didn't feel like I was watching any transcendent talents in this tournament, that's for sure.
No, because, and again, you're watching guys that are one and done.
Right.
You don't see the body of their work over 2 or 3 years where you say, wow, that guy's going to come in and make a big difference.
No.
That's why I kind of like what the Big East is talking about, that you sign and you're in for 2, and you can opt out after 2. And I kind of like that rule. I'd like to see other people adopt that. I don't know how enforceable it is.
Exactly.
But, I'd like to see it happen. And that will be in conjunction with the NBA drafting high school players. So if you're good enough to go out of high school, you go. Otherwise, you go to school and you stay for 2 years. And I like that. It's pretty much what the Major League Baseball is.
Yeah.
You can sign a contract right out of high school. You go to college, you got to stay there for a couple of years. So I'm good with it.
Definitely. So speaking of more exciting things in the tournament, Loyola Chicago.
Love it. Love the Ramblers. And I had nuns that taught me, and all my buddies were talking about, we've never seen a nun that nice. She's 98 years old. And she's really lucid, too. She's very conversational.
Extremely so.
Yeah.
She's probably the most famous person in the tournament right now.
She has her own merch now.
I know.
So I'm going to be rooting for Loyola. So I'm hoping, hoping is hope. Usually when Cinderella gets this far, and I know they don't want to be called Cinderella, but when they get this far, that next game is usually an ass kicking.
Yeah, and if you're Loyola Chicago and you make it to the Final Four, you're almost any program. You get a Final Four appearance, and that's that's almost a national championship, you know?
Yeah, and then I saw on Twitter that 12 years ago, a professor said that the value of George Mason making it was worth $675 million
Wow.
in publicity and everything else. So now you'd have to say this the Loyola make is worth over $1 billion because of social media, which didn't exist 12 years ago.
Right. I mean, sister, she's part of memes. They're clearly, I think, because especially with a team like Duke and Kansas, who aren't exact. That's if you don't live in either of those cities, you're not a big fan of either of those two teams.
No.
But I was thinking, like, is you watch this tournament all of a sudden has become a pretty normal tournament, though. I think you always have, by the end of today, you could have two number ones in Kansas and Duke. Or no, I guess one of those is a two. Well, Kansas, Villanova, Duke, you get a couple ones and twos. Michigan's a three. And you usually have your outlier of your higher seed, whether it's, a Gonzaga or somebody else in the past. So, I mean, it seems like it's kind of, you always have your one chaotic bracket and your chalk brackets on the other side,
Right.
So it almost seems like this tournament sort of just became this tournament.
So who's up right now? Villanova or Texas Tech? Villanova?
Villanova's up on Texas Tech right now.
Yeah, big?
No, not big. Let me just double check while we're sitting here. Take about 2 seconds. Take that back. It's big. 36-23 at the half.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah. And then Duke, Kansas, they both have close to 30 wins and 7 losses.
Yeah.
Based on the talent they put on the floor, you'd have to think Duke is terrible. As much as I don't like Coach K and that whole program, like this seems like a Duke year.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether they end up playing Michigan or Loyola Chicago, like it just seems like Duke is just, because they've got a couple. I mean, you're between like Grayson Allen, they've got people that have been there before that play significant roles, and then they've also got obviously the young guys that are their big studs. So, and a coach that has plenty of experience. I mean, it's hard to imagine anybody taking them out, but hopefully that'll happen today.
Right.
Who knows?
So, and also to my Major League Baseball opens up the end of the week.
And are you now excited to be an Angels fan officially?
I'm excited to be an Angels fan officially, and I was reading my Sports Illustrated today. I was reading my projections, and the projections are that the Yankees will beat the Nationals in the World Series, and the Yankees will beat the Astros in the American League Finals, and I think the Nationals beat the Dodgers in the National League Finals. But my Pirates were picked to be 70 and 92.
That seems like a pretty safe bet.
One game better than the Reds.
That seems like a very safe bet.
Yeah, they're gonna lose. They could lose 100 games. The Reds could lose 100 games. The A's could lose 100 games. The Tigers could lose. There's a lot of teams that could lose 100 games. I mean, we're really in the world of haves and have-nots right now.
And the Astros, I mean, they were the, as weird as it is to call any team in baseball a small market, considering the billions of dollars that goes through each of those teams. But the Astros did that thing where they bottomed out, traded for a lot of prospects, and then obviously last year we saw what they did.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the model. But as a fan of the Pirates,
they're the sixth largest city in the United States.
Right.
They're not small.
No, but they keep getting called small market baseball for some reason. Maybe just because of the amount of money they spent. But, I mean, we've watched the Pirates attempt to do this over and over again, and it seemed like 2 years ago they were lined up to be an exciting team for us to watch.
Yes.
And then now they're back to being just, I don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, they're back to being Yeah, I'm not, this is the first year I can remember not being enthused to watch the Pirates opener. And I don't know if I'll watch it or not.
And I think that's what, I mean, I think, when you look at the other two major sports, and I want to include one of my favorite sports in hockey in this conversation, although hockey to some extent works the same way. But with the NBA draft, like as much as I was berating or, unimpressed by some of the prospects coming in, if you're, whether you're if you're an Orlando fan or a Phoenix fan or a Memphis fan right now, you can get yourself excited for one of these prospects because one player can turn your franchise around.
Absolutely.
You look at the NFL and I think it's been almost for a decade now. There's always some team that goes from worst to first in their division. And, I know we have obviously...
The way they do it, too, if you finish last, you play a last place schedule.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, when you have,
which is a good way of letting you get back, getting improved. stockpiling draft picks. Because if you're playing a good team every year, you're going to lose, keep getting best picks. But if you finish and get a really high pick and you play a bad schedule, a schedule of weaker teams, then it means you should not be getting the top pick again next year. So I like that model.
Yeah. And, I mean, you clearly have teams that are just dominant, like the Patriots, that seem to just, it doesn't matter who's in their division. But I think you have hope, as Bills fans and Jets, Jets fans, like you traded up, you're going to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft. You at least have, the next 12 months of being excited until you see how terrible they are or not. But, I mean, you still feel like there's a chance.
The Patriots will win that division again next year.
Of course. But I'm saying, like, if you're, when I'm looking at Cleveland right now, if I was a Browns fan, despite...
I would be ecstatic.
I'd be really happy right now.
I would too.
Despite all those decades of losing and idiot GMs, like, that are looking at numbers and passing on all the great quarterbacks, like, they are in a fantastic position right now. They've got a lot of talent on that team. They've got the top pick, the 4th pick, a bunch of second-round picks. Like, if you're a Browns fan...
They spent a lot of money on free agents. That may or may not work out.
That may or may not work out.
They had a lot of cap room. Yeah.
But if you're a baseball fan right now, if you're a Reds fan, what is your greatest hope? Like, where's your hope for the next couple of seasons? Because I don't see where that would come from. Like, it seems like baseball doesn't have that.
If you're a Reds fan, you got to figure it sometime this year. Joey Votto and Billy Hamilton will be gone.
Right.
Because if you're going to rebuild, you got to get rid of them. You got to start. You got to bottom out and hope it works. But it's a crapshoot drafting high school kids.
Exactly.
So until Major League Baseball gets a cap, a realistic cap, not just if you're over this number, you're the luxury tax, a realistic cap that gets everybody spending money and lets everybody compete. It's going to be what it is. It's going to continue to go where it is, and it's going to be the Yankees and the Cubs and the Dodgers and those teams every year, year in, year out.
Yeah.
And every year, occasionally, there'll be somebody that will creep in because they got the right draft picks and everything came together and it was karma, and there you go.
But it never seems like you've got that, there doesn't seem to be the moments of hope that almost every NFL or NBA fan can have, at least for a few months a year,
No.
Like, I
know right now the Pirates won't be playing in October.
Already.
I would bet my house, my car, everything on that. No way.
Whereas if you're Phoenix right now, you're like, we've got Devin Booker. We got a couple other young, Alex Lynn, a couple young pieces. We add, the number 1 pick in the draft, and who knows? Maybe I got an exciting team to watch next year. Memphis, Gasol and Conley come back healthy. We add one of these top picks. All of a sudden, we're right back in it.
Yeah.
You're the Cleveland Browns. We get Sam Darnold at 1, Barkley at 4. And we're, Myles Garrett, we're a real threat. Who knows what's happening? But baseball, you just don't get that.
No, you don't. And nobody knows who you drafted to begin with. Because even college baseball, very few people see it. Although I did watch Vanderbilt beat LSU today. I do enjoy my college baseball when I get to see it.
Yes, indeed. Well, what have you been watching? As we switch.
Well, tomorrow night is the last episode of The Alienist, and that has been an extremely well done show. And I really, really enjoyed it. You need to watch it. You need to, find some time and watch that one. That was classic.
Now, for both myself and I suppose
really
listening
well
audience.
I love the book, Caleb Carr, and I love the way they treated this. And they spent some money on it. TBS spent some money,
TNT
spent some money on this because the period, the decor, everything that they shot is just really first class.
So will this end and it's just a 1-year thing, or is it?
Yeah, it'll it's 10 episodes. It's the last episode's tomorrow night.
Oh, okay. Well, now I'm even more interested. I like shows like that.
So that was really good. I told you I'm thinking about trying The Terror, which starts tomorrow night. I think it's on AMC because I read the book. It's a Dan Simmons book, and there's a lot of truth in the story. The Terror is the name of a boat, by the way. It's not
right
a spooky thing, but there's, it's a real human drama kind of a thing. Looked pretty good. I'm going to try that. I'm loving McMafia.
Okay.
You're the one who tipped me to go watch McMafia. McMafia is well done. It is The Sopranos of the 2018s.
Nice.
Except they're not likable. I mean, you still like Tony Soprano and you liked Uncle June. You actually like those guys. guys. There's nobody likable in McMafia.
Huh.
But it's well done. And it's about an hour and 20 minutes every episode.
Okay.
And it just flies by. So those have been really good. I rented 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri last night. Thought the acting was tremendous. Well worth the Academy Award nominations and the awards it received. Like you said, it's not a dark comedy. It's a dark movie, period.
Right.
With some funny lines in it, but that's about it. And really, even the funny lines are sad. So
It's true.
that's kind of what I've been watching. How about you?
I've watched some very non-Jason movies for people that know me, and enjoyed them. I watched Jumanji, the new one with The Rock and Jack Black, Kevin Hart, and
Your mother was trying to get me to watch that last night.
Karen Gillan, and I think I've softened a little bit. And I've become much less critical of film for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Okay.
But it's a fun movie. The Rock The Rock and Jack Black are both just fantastic in it, and everybody sort of does their job. I mean, and they updated the twist a little bit on it. It's no longer a board game because it's 2018, so Jumanji has turned itself into a video game, and then sort of chaos ensues. But it's pretty fun. It's not a great movie. You're not going to be like, oh, this is. But I mean, it's a good hang for an hour and a half, I would say. Got a couple really funny parts. It looks really cool. I watched Star Wars: The Last Jedi last night, and I have to say it was really quite good.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I'm usually not that big on the Star Wars franchises, but I really enjoyed this one.
Okay.
It did, it's got some very elements, it's got some of the creatures in there that are very much for the kids. Like they have these little furry penguins that Chewbacca interacts with.
Right.
That,
Just like the Ewoks and the other ones.
even more so than Ewoks, they don't fight. They're literally like penguins. All they can do is like hobble around and look cute with big eyes and make giant, But it was a nice transition. It made me interested to see what's happening going forward. It included a couple of there was a couple of lines where it sort of talked about government and war and both sides win when people fight kind of a situation. At least the people at the top, the rich people.
Right. Okay.
Which I thought was sort of interesting for a Star Wars movie. It's a little bit not quite as good guy bad guy kind of a situation. But yeah, I had fun with watching it. I don't know.
Good.
Again, not usually my cup of tea. And then television-wise, I've been watching the second season of the Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix, which is Timothy Olyphant, who we both love.
Yeah, we do.
And Drew Barrymore, where she eats some bad clams and then she becomes I don't know if zombie is quite the right word, but she eats people in order to stay alive.
Interesting.
And Olyphant plays he does comedy quite well. I don't think he gets enough credit for his comedy work. Because I'd seen him do a few guest spot on The League and some guest spots here and there. He does comedy really well. And in this one...
He's got that kind of sense of humor. He's got Bruce Willis kind of a sarcastic sense of humor.
Right, but in this he plays sort of a nervous, dad, husband, trying to figure things out, getting overwhelmed. And he does a really good job of it. He's able to do it without becoming too whiny, but, in a realist, I don't know, and I'm not a big Drew Barrymore fan either, but it's pretty enjoyable, I would say.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll watch Jumanji now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't want people to think it's a great movie, but I mean, if you go in with the right attitude, it's a fun hang for a little while. So that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, neither of us had a food moment this week.
Sadly, no.
But I'm headed to San Antonio for the Final Four, and I know I will have a few food moments next week, so I will do those. And speaking of which, I guess let's push our show back till Tuesday night, a week from Tuesday. And that way I'll be back from the Final Four, and we can kind of talk about my experiences and, the Final Four as part of the show.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
So until next week, thank you all for your support. Please, contribute to Patreon. We'd really appreciate it. And at least go to iTunes and subscribe and give us a 5-star rating or 4, whatever you feel like is appropriate. But we'd really needed those. So.
Okay. And you can always email us and give us suggestions for the show.
We do love getting mail. Tweet at us, whatever you want to do. We'll answer your questions online every time, as long as they're, sport or pop culture related.
All right. Everybody root for Sister